Trevor is an old traction engine who lives and works at the vicarage orchard. When he isn't busy, he likes to watch the engines go rushing by, especially his friend Edward, who had saved him from scrap. Trevor is always grateful for this, but he hasn't found a proper way to return this favour. Edward was shunting in the yard when a new railtour engine glided into the station. He went over to say hello. "Hello," he said cheerfully. "I'm Edward. Who are you?" The large engine softly spoke. "Greetings," he said. "I am Tie Gong Niao." Tie Gong Niao, Edward repeated. "What an interesting name." "Oh yes," the engine flustered. "I should explain. I have come from China as part of a rail tour. That is how it is said in my language. You can call me Iron Bull." "Very well, Iron Bull," said Edward. "Tell me, what are the railways in China like?" So Iron Bull told Edward all about his railway and the engines that worked there. Later that day, Trevor was resting happily in the sunshine when Edward came to see him. "We've got a new rail tour today," he said. "The engine's called Iron Bull, and he's come all the way from China." "How exciting!" peeped Trevor. "I hope I get to meet him." Just then, the vicar walked over. "Come along, Trevor," he said. "Farmer Finney says he needs you to thresh some grain for his chickens." "His farm's quite near the station," Edward added. "Perhaps you'll be able to meet him after all." "That could be arranged," said the vicar. Soon, Trevor, Edward and Iron Bull were talking together like old friends. Iron Bull was very intrigued by Trevor. "Being a traction engine," Trevor explained, "I still use coal and water, but I run on roads instead of rails." Iron Bull smiled. "What a miraculous engine you are," he said. "Though I wouldn't be where I am today without Edward," said Trevor. "He saved me from scrap, you know." Iron Bull paused and looked at Edward. "Is this so?" he asked. "Yes, it is. Luckily, I was able to find the vicar, who gave Trevor a home in the vicarage orchard." "I still need to properly repay you for saving me," Trevor added. Edward laughed. "I've told you, think nothing of it. Your gratitude is repayment enough." Iron Bull thought for a moment. "Perhaps he could find a home for me too." "What was that?" asked Edward. "Oh, nothing," Iron Bull flustered. "And not to worry at all." Trevor wasn't convinced. That afternoon, Trevor had returned from threshing grain for Farmer Finney. As the sun quietly set over the island, he couldn't help but think about what Iron Bull had said. What did he mean by find a home for him? He wondered. Could he not have a home in China? "Trevor, there you are," called a voice. It was Iron Bull, puffing towards the fence. "I was hoping I would find you here." "What did you mean when you said that you hoped the vicar could find a home for you?" Trevor asked. Iron Bull sighed. "Unfortunately, I have not told you my whole story," he said. "I was truthful with you until a point, but perhaps I should tell you." Trevor listened. "My railway is heavily controlled by the government," he began. "They have allowed steam engines to work in tandem with diesels and electric engines for a long period of time. But now they have decided that the use of steam engines would not be in the best interest of China's global image, and have begun to phase out steam engines from mainline service. When I was chosen to be part of the Branco rail tours, I was told that I was essentially given up as a donation, with no intention to be sent back. However, should I return to China once my rail tour is complete, it is certain that I will be scrapped." Trevor didn't know what to say. He had felt the hopeless fear of being scrapped before, but he had Edward and the vicar to save him. But it looked as though Iron Bull had no one to come to his rescue at all. "I wish I knew how to help you," he said sadly. The next day, Trevor spoke to the vicar about Iron Bull's dilemma. "And he says that if he goes back to China, he'll be scrapped," he finished. "I understand your concern," said the vicar, "but I doubt that we can do anything to help." "I suppose you wouldn't have space for a large engine like him, would you?" Trevor asked innocently. "Don't be silly, Trevor," the vicar frowned. "Whilst I've sworn my life to do the Lord's work upon creation, there is only so much a mortal man can do. Besides, your case was much simpler." Trevor looked down sadly. "But perhaps," the vicar pondered, "I could have a word with the railtour manager." As if by chance, Edward came up excitedly. The railtour manager was in his cab. "You must be Trevor then," said the railtour manager. He tipped his hat to the vicar. "How do you do, sir?" "Whatever is all this?" Trevor asked. "You must come to Knapford," Edward said excitedly. "I'll explain on the way." Iron Bull sat in his siding. His railtour train was due to leave later that day. He was forlorn about it, for it would mean the possibility of going back to China to be scrapped. Edward suddenly pulled into the yard with the vicar, the railtour manager, and Trevor loaded onto a truck. "Goodness me!" Iron Bull gasped. "What is all this for?" "Iron Bull," said the railtour manager, "I know that you were concerned about what would happen once your railtour was complete, but—" "I understand, sir," Iron Bull sadly interrupted. "I will accept my imminent fate." "Good," the railtour manager said, "because you won't be going back to China." Iron Bull was confused. "What do you mean?" "I was waiting to tell you before it was officially confirmed," the railtour manager continued. "You're not going to be scrapped. You're going to be sent to work on a railway in America," added Edward. "In a place called Iowa," Trevor chirped. "I'm not too sure where that is, though, but you won't have to worry about scrap anymore." "You hear that, Iron Bull?" said the vicar. "The railtour manager saved you." Iron Bull was overjoyed. "What wonderful news this is! I have been given a second chance." And Iron Bull blew his whistle as loud as he could. Edward and Trevor joined in. "Well, Trevor," said Edward, "I suppose you could say that you paid it forward." What do you mean?" "Well," explained Edward, "you wanted to find a way to repay me for saving you from scrap, but you've paid it forward by helping Iron Bull." "Oh, I get it now," said Trevor excitedly. "I suppose we're even then." "Exactly," smiled Edward. "And for that," Iron Bull finished, "I am grateful."